Hello and welcome back to Tricolor Gaming with me, Fletcher.
And welcome to another park tour, and this time it's a park that I have been building completely off stream. This park I haven't built at all on live, I've been doing this entirely off stream, and this is the first park I have completely finished on the Isla Nublar 93 map. And this park has been built extensively with quite a lot of mods as well, so in a way this can be seen as, you know, this is the sort of the level of park that can be built on a PC taking advantage of all the mods, but it's also, I think, demonstrative of what a park builder should kind of be like, and really what Jurassic World Evolution 2 should have been like on launch. Now this is going to be a fairly long tour, I think, because there's a lot to go over this particular park. So let's get going straight away, and just to start with, you can see that the Isla Nublar 93 map here, I divided it into two sections. You have the lower section where the park entrance is and the lagoons are. Then you have the upper section, which is defined by this quite long river, and the ramp that usually joins the two sections together. We've got a monorail linking the two, and a waterfall section, thanks to mods, that sort of forms a decorative backdrop here. So let's start by having a look at the park entrance area and the lower section first. So here we are with the actual park entrance, and what we're going to do is we're going to stay in capture mode, and we're not going to go down to first person mode, simply because it would take a bit long to go around the park, and I think from a slightly bird's eye perspective you get a better idea of how the park sort of works. So the entrance is formed of four structures which are combined together. You have the visitor center from Jurassic Park in the middle, and then you have two identical helicopter entrance pads either side, and then at the rear you have this multi-roofed lodge structure, which has been added by a mod. And the way I see this working is that this whole area is basically one very large entrance facility. The lodge I see is sort of similar to an aircraft terminal, an airport terminal building. People waiting to take their flights off the island would be waiting here, but it probably also has sort of staff facilities and that sort of thing. And the actual visitor center itself is probably home to sort of gift shops and restaurants and that sort of thing. Naturally, there is some seating outside, and you're going to see a lot of similar sort of garden areas and lots of decorative foliage, so I'm not going to point out every single example. I would say I do absolutely love using these raptor signs as decorative murals there, just sealing off the seating area. And the entrance area itself is kind of located in the middle of the lower section of the park, so people have to sort of walk around the entrance to get to explore this area completely. Let's look at what they are walking directly down onto. So you can see we've got straight from the visitor area here, you've got a lovely view of the aviary, you've got the mountains, the waterfalls, the statues. The whole thing gives you a very nice view, I think. And that's something you should think about when you're building your parks, is sort of what people are actually able to see from where they are. Now, something else you'll see as we go around the park is also I've used a lot of the lagoon flags and pillars in the middle of my paths to provide a little bit of gap fill and some decorative touches. Now, our first enclosure here on this side is a mix of Struthiomimus and this pygmy hadrosaurid, and I think it's pronounced Angeba. And this just provides a very simple small little dinosaur enclosure just for people to have a look at to begin with. You'll see that the enclosure itself is surrounded by plenty of rocks and foliage, and some of these sails that just provide a bit of decorative flair there. And we've got some lightweight fencing, which is lit by bias-in lampposts. And we've got some seating areas here that are covered with the gantries, with the benches, so that people would technically be able to sort of sit down and have a look at the dinosaurs. We'll handle this whole area in a minute. Let's just keep going around the rest of the park for now. So we have a very large amenities area and guest plaza section here at the back. And this plaza area is formed from a few large amenities, and we've got plenty of decoration here. We've got a couple of gardens, we have plenty of seating, trees, planters, that sort of thing. And you also have here, again thanks to mods, some glass windows which allows you to have a look into the enclosure to view the dinosaurs. This whole back section behind the entrance facility is home to a lot of decorative elements, seating areas, gardens, guest plazas, and this first area supports 4 Ceratosaurus in a well-style enclosure below ground. We've got some glass windows again to view in, and I've given them some decorative elements. We've got a log viewer here that can be accessed from over there. We've also got a sort of Aztec style tower just for a bit of decoration, and they've got a fountain. What really makes this paddock unique is that we have a bridge or two that goes over their enclosure to provide guests with a much more impressive view of these dinosaurs as they go running below. Now obviously there would be some safety concerns here, but I'm assuming people are not going to be stupid enough to dangle their arms or legs over the edge of a bridge. And there are 2 bridges, a short one and a long one, and this sort of divides the enclosure off between a sort of sandy area and a more forested area. At the very back here we have a tall lodge, which I can imagine is a sort of restaurant or a viewing tower. It actually in-game functions as a hotel, so it will draw guests to come towards it when the park is open. And this overlooks the Ceratosaurus enclosure, but also the Brachiosaurus enclosure over there, which we'll have a look at in a second. So we've got plenty more guest plazas and seating areas here. And again, another large bridge allows access to this sort of central seating area and viewing location for this enclosure here. We've got some Brachiosaurus in here and Huangosaurus. The Brachiosaurus have color modifications of the Jurassic Park 2001 skin. It's the JP3 skin, and we've gone for this sort of green and brown and this sort of mottled giraffe like brown and brown, and they inhabit this whole enclosure area there. And then that brings us back round to sort of the primary path that leads through the middle of this zone. This enclosure on this side, which again you have this viewing area complete with glass walls and blue lighting, which looks really good in the dark. And at the end of this particular video we'll have a look at how this looks like in the dark. This allows vision into the Phallosuchus exhibit, which is sort of a similar animal to Postosuchus. It's a big archosaur, and it just serves as a beginner sort of carnivore enclosure. And I went for a sort of fir tree style environment here with a viewing dome at the back just over the water for closer viewing. The end of this path ends in a few smaller amenities and eventually access to a bathroom. So that is sort of that first half of this lower area. This whole area, which I would call the entrance zone. On the other side, we have the lagoon and aviary zone, accessed underneath this very large tree of life here, which is illuminated by a fountain, and you have some seating here on this guest plaza. Going underneath here, you're now into the lagoon area, and there are lots of sort of decorative elements here. Obviously, on this side, you have a water source which is technically linked to the aviary, and this I've used for a lot of vegetation and statues. We've got a Memenchi in here, T-Rex in here, Baryonyx statues in here, and others, just to provide a decorative backdrop. You've also got some guest seating areas here, both standard tables but also picnic tables, and some smaller amenities. All the amenities in the park have this same color combination of sort of a green and a white, which I think works quite nicely. And as you can see here, so the water feature here technically links directly to the aviary domes on that side. Let's start with this aviary. In fact, the aviary has multiple viewing structures around it, and again more seating areas and decorative fountains. Inside the aviary, I went for a desert style oasis sort of enclosure, and this is home to some Jurassic Park 3 pteranodons, again with different color combinations, and some Geosternbergia. I really wanted to use these two as they're basically the Lost World Isla Sorna pterosaur species and the Jurassic Park 3 Isla Sorna pterosaur species. And you can see I've gone for the blue skin there. And the Geosternbergia, I think I've gone with this decorative red, if I can find one. Where did that one just go? There we are. This sort of decorative, warm, orangey red color combination. This is quite a long dog leg enclosure. You've got multiple vegetation areas in the middle and multiple fountains for decorative flair, and obviously pterosaur landing sites as well. And I think it turned out quite nicely. Now coming back around, you can see that this central lagoon here is actually sort of not protected, but hidden from view behind these trees. But this does allow access to a viewing dome that's inside the lagoon. And you've also got viewing galleries around it too. You've got some seating at this particular end of the lagoon, again hidden with some trees here and fountains. And along this back edge, again, more of these decorative flag pillars, which ends in this the end of the river that's continuing to flow through the park, but we'll get to that in a minute. This lagoon obviously is flanked by the trees around either side, which helps to sort of hem it in and hide the fact that it is basically a very large concrete fishbowl. But you've also got that wonderful waterfall in the background, which provides a nice decorative touch. And you have a couple of flaming obelisks and an island here. And the island is because we have some Nothosaurus in here, two different combinations, a sort of green and red alligator sort of style, and a Lux blue and grey. And then inside the lagoon, these are swimming alongside Shonisaurus. I thought those two worked particularly well. They're both Triassic period species, so this could be seen as a Triassic period lagoon, really. I went with sort of this green and black Shonisaurus pattern just because I thought it really suited the environment. And I also gave them some enhanced decorations, again modded decorations. We got some kelp here and a rocky archway, which just really helps to make the enclosure a little bit more impressive. And these guys are perfectly happy being with one another. And then the viewing dome is hidden underneath the rock platform for the Nothosaurus. So again, it doesn't stand out too horribly. It kind of ends up looking like one defined structure, and I think it really suits. Obviously, the far end you have the splash of the waterfall, but that is mostly hidden by the platform and the tower, so it's not too horrible to look at. And yeah, I just think it's a really nice lagoon. Popping to the other side, you also have another lagoon. I went for a bit of path art to fill this gap here because I didn't want the whole thing to be completely pathed over. So we've just got a little pliosaur path art here going on. Now, over the river, we've got a structure here, and I can sort of see this as like a staff structure. Maybe it's a staff center, or it could even be sort of a fossil museum or something like that, a small visitor building. What I love is the fact that it's on stilts, so you can position it on a water source and it looks kind of normal. I believe this structure comes directly from Jurassic Park Trespasser, but you'll have to correct me on that if I'm wrong, but I think that's where this structure actually comes from. The lagoon itself is a fairly simple oval, but by kind of adding elements to the sides and the ends, I've given it these sort of curved, it retains the curved sort of edges, so I think it looks quite aesthetically pleasing, this sort of lozenge shape. You can also see from above that there are two viewing areas. You've got the viewing gallery at the end, or if you head down below ground level past these trees, you have galleries, sort of like aquarium galleries, that would also allow you to have a look at the lagoon. So let's have a quick jump in. I've framed it with these trees, and in here we have a mixture of Liplorodon in various skins, and these are living alongside technically a Devonian period shark, Tencanthus, but I kind of also see them as like a replacement for Hybodus, which is I believe a shark variety that was around at the same time. Again, correct me if I'm wrong. I'm pretty sure it was around at the same time as Liplorodon, and I just think it kind of suits. And again, they've got a sort of coral reef enclosure with some kelp around it. I went for more kelp than the Shonisaurus exhibit. And again, I think it really suits. I mean, you've got a lot of fish here for the Liplorodon and the Tencanthus. I think it looks really decorative and really beautiful. Excellent catch, Liplorodon. So, that is basically the whole of this lower area. And you can see that this river stops the lagoon, basically fades into the tree line. The whole point of this park was a rebuild of a park I first built on Jurassic World Evolution 1, which I called Nublar River. I believe the original video is still on the channel, and that was basically the Jurassic World Evolution 1 Isla Nublar map with a river artificially built through it. And basically what I've done is rebuild it for this map, taking advantage of all the new elements we've got. So these waterfalls, they're independent structures. The mod adds independent waterfalls, but also adds placeable waterfall elements as well, so that you can create your own waterfall elements. Now, they don't have sound, which is obviously a limitation of the mod, but just in sheer look, I think it really helps to enlighten the map. And I wish we had these placeable structures ourselves. I mean, look at that, that looks great. And then this joins to the upper area of the park, which is the biggest area by far, and is where traditionally most people have the entrance. They would have If I just have an overview look here, they would traditionally have the entrance by the waterfall, and then they would build the park sort of coming outwards from that. I didn't want to do that with this build. I wanted to demonstrate that the actual waterfall area can be used in other ways, hence why I built the entrance down there, and we built the park sort of going down to up. You can see that there's actually, most of this area is devoted to a very large, it's not a singular enclosure, but it's actually a very large environmental area with multiple enclosures in it and tours. But there are smaller enclosures around, and obviously you can see that the river continues up around here, passing over and under, and ends technically over here with this other waterfall. So that's the whole of the river Nublar. So if you take the monorail, you join the monorail down here around this station area. It's just a simple garden, a few fountains, some Parasaurolophus statues, and seating areas here. Got a nice little decorative Jurassic Park statue there. And it's flanked with a couple of Brachiosaurus as well, just for some decorative flair. And then the monorail takes you up all the way past the waterfalls, giving you a good view, and spits you out here. Now this is kind of a central area. It's primarily an octagon, one of my well-loved octagon exhibits, which then provides access to lots of different areas of the park. Now this particular area you can see is flanked with plenty of decorative elements. You've got amenities on one side as well. You've got seating areas, picnic tables and standard seating areas, and you've also got a couple of bathrooms hidden away behind these trees here. But the center point is this well-styled below ground level enclosure, which has this large central bridge across the middle, as well as glass access windows on either side, and then these low but strong concrete wall sections. And in here we have Megalania, and I thought these large Komodo dragon-like lizards really suited this sort of style of enclosure, this sort of desert style enclosure with the large bridge going across, because you're obviously going to be a lot safer with these guys than perhaps the Ceratosaurus. They won't be able to reach you from up here, and unless you fall into the enclosure, should be alright. And again, just a few decorative touches, fountains, trees, and there's some buried Spinosaurus skeletons just for a bit of fun as well. And there's lots of, there's a couple of different patterns of Megalania in here. You've got some with the white tails, and some with the decorative blue tails, and I see the white tails as being... Oh, you've got some red, orange tailed as well. So it's not a male-female enclosure, you've just got a range of different colour combinations, basically. These massive Komodo dragons, they work quite well, I think. So, we'll start by heading this way first of all, away from that octagon. And this leads to a dead end that ends in the Innovation Centre, but before we get there, past these decorative elements, you have this round enclosure which is home to Dryosaurus and a chunky little mod species sauropod called Yamanosaurus. And I really liked how this one looked with its chunky osteoderms. I think it just had a really nice style to it, and I love the skin as well. A really beautiful skin. And I gave them this sort of fir tree style Isla Sorna like environment just because I think it suited the animals. So that provides a sort of simple herbivore enclosure. And then this is basically just a street that ends in the Innovation Centre, home to some basic amenities, seating areas, and the actual Innovation Centre itself. I see the Innovation Centre in this park as probably more of an attraction, providing maybe a restaurant. Maybe this is just a restaurant, or this is perhaps a hotel in itself, or it could even possibly be sort of a museum or something similar to that. I don't see it being similar to the Innovation Center in the film, basically. If I have then take the camera up, you can see that just hidden behind the trees is the staff area where the dinosaurs and that are constructed. I wanted to leave that in case I ever wanted to sort of remake this park or do improvements to this park. Now, if we take the path the other way, opposite from the Innovation Center, we see it flanks multiple different enclosures here. We'll stick to this main path that follows up past the monorail. And you can see here that behind this concrete fence with some glass access windows again, we have Carnotaurus in here. Now there are two different sizes of Carnotaurus. The standard in-game model of Carnotaurus, and I think this is Master Dute's alternative, slightly more paleontologically accurate design of Carnotaurus. I used Master Dute's just because I think it had better skin colorations here. I wanted a variation of skin. We've got a collapsed Aztec tower here just for a bit of design flair, and a viewing dome for good viewing. I also added a sort of an old church structure, which again is another mod decorative piece, but I just think it adds a nice touch to this back of this enclosure. And it's also floodlit as well, so in the dark this looks really good. And again, I'll show you how the park looks in the dark at the end. This rocky semicircle actually hides where the invisible fence line is, and you can see I've got some lagoon lighting there, which highlights where the edge of that is, and again it looks really good in the dark. Now again, at the end of the Carnotaurus enclosure you have a guest plaza area. This is just primarily for seating, but again you've got a nice little garden there. And this also provides access to the viewing galleries of the enclosure over there, which we'll talk about in a second. I just want to highlight this area between the Carnotaurus enclosure and the others, however, which I've devoted to this garden area. And you've got statues in here and a path running through all this vegetation. Again, it looks really good in the dark because it's all very well lit. But you can see we've got some Dimorphodons here, we've got Stegosaurus fighting an Allosaurus here. And again, these sort of decorative touches, the gardens, really helps to improve your park builds. And, you know, if you've got some space in your park, don't just fill it up with path or something. Build a garden, build something like this for guests to enjoy walking around. Now, between the gardens and the Carnotaurus enclosure, we have another walk-in enclosure, where you've got these bridges that allow you access technically inside the enclosure to view. And in here we have some Triceratops somewhere. I wanted to do something slightly different with this enclosure, so what I've given them is some natural fog. I sort of see this as maybe like it's a geothermal spring area, a geothermal spring biome for them. So what it actually is, it's a combination of standard fog, fog effect that the mod adds, but also I've got a lagoon vent here just for sort of a vent spire. And I think it really helps to provide some atmospheric quality to the Triceratops enclosure. The Triceratops are using a modded skin thanks to Glitch, where we have the color combinations from the Shonisaurus on the Triceratops, which is why they've got this lovely yellow, black and white frill on the males, and the females have no coloration. We've got 2 males and I think there's 3 or 4 females here. But I think it just looks really good, cool seeing this seeing them wander through the fog as they do. Really beautiful animals. Now, on the other side of the garden area, we have this quite large, again, decorative zone. We have 2 more structures here. Now, these technically, in the mod, are Jurassic Park era innovation centers. But again, given the Brachiosaur statues outside and the amber, I kind of see them as probably museums or maybe there's smaller reptiles or something inside of them, maybe small exhibits. And then behind this you have a large lake and some seating along the edge of River Nublar. The viewing galleries here overlook an enclosure that can only be seen basically from the galleries or over the river, which is home to some Stegosaurus, again which use Glitch's FGM mod. So they've got the Shonisaurus colorations, the blue and the yellows there, and there's some, I think there's some white and yellows in here. Black, the Triceratops black, yellow and whites. And they live alongside some Diplodocus, which have some just quite standard skin colours. And it's quite a long enclosure. It sort of forms one edge of the river bank. So again, just a simple enclosure for guests to view. Now, back here, coming from the octagon, the path heads all the way up to the bridge that crosses over the river. There's another guest amenity area here with some seating just to bookend the gardens. But on the other side you can see we've actually got a gyrosphere tour. Now this gyrosphere tour is what I'm calling the Cretaceous Prey and Predator tour. The gyrosphere ride starts by taking guests along this route past the fence line and the other guest zone, and then pops in here through the airlock. And this provides access to the Cretaceous Prey exhibit. Now this first exhibit area is home to a number of animals which were typical prey species during the Cretaceous period. So we've got some Edmontosaurus in here, we've got some Gallimimus in here, we've got some Ankylosaurus in here. They've got a simple lake area, and again it's a fairly simple enclosure, but you can really see how the multicolored trees really helps to enhance these enclosures. Really helps get away from that boring green that can sometimes make a lot of parks look a bit dull. And obviously as you'd be in the gyrosphere you'd be getting lots of information about these species. And then you pass through this airlock at the other end of the area. And this provides access to the Cretaceous Predator section of the Gyrosphere tour, where we have two Tyrannosaurus Rex, and they've got quite a large, if I actually show you from above, they've got quite a large chunk of exhibit here along the River Nublar, and they've got a little offshoot. And again, their enclosure, I've given them some fog just to make their enclosure look particularly interesting, some geothermal springs. The T-Rex themselves are not the standard in-game T-Rex. These are a model and skin pattern called the Calamity Rex. And I've went for two colorations, a black and green one, and a sort of brownish, brown and blue. I think they're really good, cool looking skins and cool looking colours. Yeah, and these two are our Cretaceous Predators. And then the gyrosphere comes back out of the airlocks at the edge of the River Nublar and goes back to the station. We then have this wonderful bridge, if I don't say so myself. We've got lagoon fountains, lagoon flags, obelisks, and plenty of vegetation, and even a couple of waterfall sections that just really help to give this bridge sort of aesthetic. That crosses the River Nublar, and then you're in the back end of the park here. And we have two exhibits immediately on either bank. You have some Allura Titans in here, just a simple herbivore enclosure, but I wanted something a little decorative and nice. And then opposite viewable through these glass window panels, you have this wonderful, colourful carnivore called Lehavenator, I think is how you pronounce it. And they have some wonderful, vivid skins. Obviously, it's a mod species, but I really love how beautiful they look. And there's a few colour combinations in here, including some tricolor white or green and black for my colour combinations there. There's also a blue one in there as well. Some beautiful skins in here. Again, just a small carnivore in the sort of desert style enclosure. The path continues up. We'll have a look at the area around the waterfall last. This section is devoted to the other side of that large environmental section and is actually a river tour. This is obviously a modded structure, the Jungle River Cruise. Basically, it's a repurposed truck tour, essentially, which the mod creator, I cannot remember who it is, I do apologize. I shall look it up and make sure I flash it up on screen. It uses the trucks, which is why you can hear them, and the trucks take guests along this river cruise. The river cruise is actually divided into several distinct sections by invisible fence, which the boats can technically go over without gates. This first area, we have a sort of quite sandy, duney sort of side to the river and a vegetated side to the river. This is home to some Pentaceratops and this wonderful mod species Hypsibema, which I just love for how colourful it is and distinctive it is. But they inhabit this particular section. Again, we've got multiple rock features and vegetation just to break up the river. The next section, we have a mix of iguanodons in a couple of different skin colours, and these wonderful jagged fang designs of Apatosaurus with the much more distinct skin colours, which I think just work really well for this sort of style of enclosure, and again similar to the river cruise enclosure in Jurassic World. And then the river cruise heads to this final section around the waterfall at this far end, and this is home to a trio of baryonyx, which might be a little bit dangerous for the sort of these boats, but I see them, you know, they are quite wide, so I kind of see that the dinosaur would struggle to get too close. But I also think they'd probably have some protection system. Probably in reality there'd be a cage or something around this to keep them safe. And then the boats basically turn around at this end of the river and potter on back past the waterfall back down the river there. And that's the whole of the river tour, this sort of large distinct area. And again, I think that works really well. Oh dear. The dinosaurs sinking a few boats there. And the final area of the park is the hotel zone, which is kept hidden away by the waterfall, accessible by this primary path that goes all the way through this vegetation. It then pops underneath this awning, which provides access to the hotel zone. And you can see it's actually a completely built up area alongside the waterfall. You've got two of the sort of lodge style hotel buildings here, which I sort of imagine are maybe the more expensive hotel structures. And then you have the hotel at the rear end here, which I can imagine is perhaps a sort of they offer cheaper rooms, or maybe they're the family rooms or something like that. And you've got plenty of decoration. You've got statues here, fountains, and a couple of the Mayan towers flanked by brachiosaurs before you get to the hotel itself, which is flanked by these wonderful fountains. And then the large hotel at the end, the upper surface gives you these wonderful bar views of the waterfall. And I think it works quite well as a distinct sort of hotel zone away from the park, away from the noise, and something that gives you a nice view of the waterfall. So that is basically the whole of the park in a bit of a whirlwind tour. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to switch to nighttime, just so you can have a look at what this looks like in the dark. And I want to go over just a few choices that I made for the lighting. So let me do that quickly now. So here we are in the darkness with the park, and you can see here how I have arranged the lighting. So you can see all of the flagpoles have this sort of green lights that help to guide guests around the park. Most of the fountains have a combination of blue lighting just to enhance the water. Most statues also have some coloured lighting around them just to show them off. Most of the windowed sections have these UV style sort of blue lights, which I think works really well around the glass, and I think it especially works quite well with the Phaseolasuchus exhibit. If I could, I would roof this section off to make it like its own distinct zone, but again, some great views inside of there. And we've got this wonderful trunk lighting from the fountain around the Tree of Life. The lagoons are not particularly lit, though that one isn't, but I believe the Liporodon lagoon has some lighting around the coral just to improve how that looks. Again, helps to show off the kelp as well, I think, which works quite nicely. Quite a nice exhibit as a result. And then popping up, you can see what I mean about using the lagoon lighting to mark the edge of the invisible fence boundaries. Just helps to make the park look a little more interesting in the dark from above. And you can see we've got some, again, that's just the green lighting around the flagpoles. The blue lights return for the garden area, helping to guide visitors past all these statues, which again are nice and lit. I really like using this blue for lighting in guest areas. I'm going to be doing that a lot more often. That red lighting on that Spinosaurus looks so cool. Let's have a look at this sort of fog effect in the dark and gloom. Just makes it look a little atmospheric, a little Silent Hilly. And again, you can see the use of the blue lighting around the glass. No lighting around the enclosures. I don't want to disturb the dinosaurs that way. The bridge lit with the blues and the greens. And no heavy lighting around here, where the river enclosure is. And again, I think the hotel area is just lit kind of naturally by the hotel buildings themselves. The fountain. Oh, and we got the lighting in the Carnotaurus enclosure here. We got some floodlights that highlight the collapsed tower there, and the floodlights in the old church just for some atmosphere there. Floodlight in the tower, and there's a couple of hidden floodlights around the walls there, just for a bit of interesting decorative flair. So yeah, that's the whole park in the nighttime. the brand new river, Nublar. I think this park has turned out really, really good. I really love the species I've got in here. I really love the decorative elements I've got here, and I love how the park came together. Let me know down in the comments what you think of this particular build, and if there are any ideas you're going to take from my build for your own park builds. Don't forget to check out the Jurassic Architect series on the channel as well for ideas of how you can improve your own park building skills. And don't forget, if you're new here, to like the video and subscribe for more content from all of us at Tricolor Gaming. But until next time, stay safe and goodbye.